As January is the birth month of Ben Franklin, he was born on January 17, 1706, I thought it would be fun to revisit an episode about Ben Franklin from 2019. Now, in episode 221, we spoke with Ray Catherine Amy about her book, Stirring the Pot with Benjamin Franklin. And in our conversation, Ray really helped us explore Ben's childhood in Boston, the different types of foods that his sister and mother would have prepared for Franklin and his family. And we also discussed the Franklin family chandlery, or candle and soap making business, which actually involves a lot of cooking. Now, after our full-length conversation, Ray stayed on with me so that we could answer a few more of your questions about Ben Franklin and food. So in this episode, we're going to discuss early American holidays and special holiday foods, the types of flour that early Americans used in their pastry baking, and whether Franklin preferred to drink beer or wine. So without further ado, let's go reconnect with Ray Catherine Amy and learn more about Ben Franklin and his culinary preferences. So Ray, Jeremy would like to know about the foods British Americans ate during special times of the year. Did colonial Americans celebrate holidays and have special foods that they consumed during those holidays?
That's an interesting question. And as far as I'm able to tell, the holidays are not as expansively celebrated. Certainly there wasn't Thanksgiving the way we know it. People did celebrate a little bit around Christmas. We see that Ben had a huge celebration in France for Christmas time. You know, the list of groceries that were ordered by his French staff, sort of, they read like 12 Days of Christmas song. It's, partridges and hens and turkeys and all sorts of things. But my sense of it is that people made their own special times and had their own special celebrations, but not certainly the way we do.
And what about flour and pastries? Emily is curious about what 18th century flour was like. She wonders if it was more dense and less processed than the flour we have today, and how the flour of early America would have affected the baking of things like pastries.
That's a fascinating question. And you're dealing with a lot of variables there, Emily. You're dealing with the kind of wheat. You're dealing with how it's milled. And of course, as you said, processed. I usually work with unbleached flour, and I'm now buying organic unbleached flour. My sense of how the wheat would have been ground suggests that it's really not that different, because you find people writing about grinding the wheat, which of course is what we do now, and then bolting it, which means sifting it through cloth instead of metal screening the way we do now in flour mills. You do get a light flour. So my sense is it is not that different.
Beer or wine? Ruth and Mike would like to know whether Benjamin Franklin preferred beer or wine with his meals, and whether we know what kinds of beer and wine Ben Franklin enjoyed.
He liked both. And there's this well-known T-shirt that you find online, quoting Franklin, saying that God so loved us that he gave us beer. Well, actually, that real quote is based on his thought about wine, where he said in a letter to a French friend, and this is a translation, "Behold the rain which descends from heaven upon our vineyards. There it enters the roots of the vine to be changed into wine, the constant proof that God loves us and loves to see us happy." He had a very expensive wine cellar in France. He drank Madeira when he was a youth in Philadelphia. He had a friend from England send him porter, which is kind of beer, when he returned after the revolution to Philadelphia, and he served it to the arriving delegates at what would be known as the Constitutional Convention, where our Constitution was devised. So he drank both, but again, as he said in Poor Richard several times, that moderation was the key to success. And in fact, in the Pennsylvania Gazette, he one time published a list of some 200 synonyms for being drunk. So he enjoyed all kinds of alcohol, I think, but in moderation.
Did that whet your appetite for further exploration of Ben Franklin and food? Are you hungry to learn a bit more? If so, be sure you revisit our full-length conversation with Ray Catherine Amy and episode 221. You'll find this episode in all of your favorite podcast apps and at benfranklinsworld.com/221. Thank you for your continued support of Ben Franklin's World. It really means a lot to Holly, Joe, the OI, and myself. Thank you. This episode of Ben Franklin's World is supported by an American Rescue Plan grant to the Omohundro Institute from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Production assistance for this podcast comes from the Omohundro Institute's digital audio team: Joseph Edelman, Jessica Brabble, Martha Howard, and Holly White. Breakmaster Cylinder composed our custom theme music. Ben Franklin's World is a production of the Omohundro Institute and is sponsored by the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation.